Hello and welcome to the channel. Today we are at the East Midlands Aeropark next to the East Midlands Airport to take a look at a collection of vintage aircraft. There's a Vulcan in there that I'm really looking forward to seeing. Here is the free car park. No pre-booking is required and entry prices are very reasonable. In 2025, under 5s go free, 6 to 17-year-olds £3, 17 and over £5. I will leave a link in the description to the website for you to get up-to-date information. We've only just walked in and I can see the Seppercat Jaguar. These first were in 1968, over 500 of them were built. They started out as jet trainers with a bit of ground attack capability, then developed into reconnaissance and tactical nuclear aircraft. The RAF used Jaguars from 1973 until 2007. This particular aircraft was delivered to RAF Bruggen in Germany in 1976. It served until the mid-80s, then it went into storage at RAF Sharbury. After upgrades, it returned to service in 1988 and flew until 2005. Since then, it's been stored, used in a paintball park of all things, and finally arrived here at the East Midlands Aeropark in October 2020. I like that they've put a pilot in there. Here is a Sea King. This one served from 1985 to 2004 and was flown from carriers HMS Invincible and the Ark Royal, joining the Aeropark in 2018. Here is the Vickers Varsity T1, a descendant of the Vickers Wellington bomber. This one was used as a training aircraft from the 1950s until the 1970s. In 1976, it was purchased from the MOD and came to the East Midlands Airport, and from there to here at the Aeropark. This is a de Havilland Vampire T11. It entered service in 1946, just after the end of the war, and was the first RAF fighter with a top speed of over 500 miles per hour. It was the first jet to cross the Atlantic and the first jet fighter to operate from an aircraft carrier. This one is constructed from two planes, with rebuilding starting in 2009. And here she is, the star of the show, the mighty Avro Vulcan. The Vulcan was part of Britain's famous V-bomber force. Alongside the Vickers Valiant and the Handley Page Victor, they were designed during the Cold War to carry Britain's nuclear bomb in the late 50s and 60s. In the late 50s, the Vulcan had a complete wing redesign, which gave us the final version, the B Mark II. You can't miss the early ones in their striking anti-flash white paint, designed to reflect the heat from a nuclear blast. From the mid-1960s, the Vulcan took on new roles: low-level flying, nuclear strike and maritime reconnaissance. This is when it switched to the camouflage paint scheme. In 1969, the job of Britain's nuclear deterrent had passed to the Royal Navy's Polaris submarines, but the Vulcan still had plenty to do. During the Falklands campaign in 1982, a specially modified Vulcan carried out the incredible Black Book mission, flying from Ascension Island to bomb the runway at Port Stanley. To get there, a long chain of Victor tanker aircraft refueled each other in mid-air just to keep one Vulcan going. The whole trip was around 8,000 miles and took around 16 hours, the longest bombing raid ever attempted at the time. The mission was a success. The runway was damaged, forcing the Argentines to rethink their air operations. But maybe more importantly, it proved that the RAF could still strike anywhere in the world, even with an aircraft designed nearly 30 years earlier. At just over 100 feet long, with a wingspan of 111 feet, and powered by 4 Rolls-Royce Olympus turbojets, the Vulcan could still reach over 640 miles an hour, and it remains one of Britain's most iconic aircraft ever built. This particular Vulcan entered service in May 1963 and retired in 1982. Just 3 months after it took part in the Falklands Victory flypast over London on the 28th of October 1982. Here is a 1953 English Electric Canberra B2, and here is the BAC Jet Provost T4, the RAF's go-to jet trainer from the late 50s through to the mid-1990s. Simple to fly, easy to maintain, and perfect for training new pilots. This one first flew in 1962 and finally found its forever home here at the East Midlands Aeropark in 2008. This is the Hawker Hunter JA-11, Britain's first swept-wing interceptor. First flown in the early 1950s, it broke the sound barrier in 1952 and set a world speed record of 727 miles per hour the next year. This aircraft, first flown in 1955, features a Hartley nose light used to train gunners. It arrived at the Aeropark in 2009. Here is a Percival P56 Provost T1, often called the Piston Provost. Built in the 1950s as a basic trainer for the RAF, it replaced the Percival Prentice. This one flew in 1953, and after moving through flying schools, museums and even a pub garden, it landed here at the East Midlands Aeropark in 2013. As you can see, and hear, we're right next to the runway at the East Midlands Airport here. Here we have a real giant, the BAE Hawker Siddeley Nimrod R1. Just look at the size of it! Over 117 feet long, with a wingspan of 114 feet. The R1 was based on the Nimrod MR2, a maritime patrol aircraft, but this version had a far more secretive role, and there were only 3 of these ever made, so this one's a real rarity. This spy plane could dash into an area at high speed, then loiter for hours gathering intelligence, with air-to-air refuelling, extending its endurance even further if necessary. Some of its dish aerials were hidden in the bomb bay, others in the tail cone and wing tanks, helping it eavesdrop across vast areas. Small groups of 4 to 6 people are allowed inside, so let's go and take a look around. Up front were a crew of 4. 2 pilots, a flight engineer and a navigator. This is where the navigator sat, using paper maps to get around. How times have changed. Here sat around 24 specialists, including linguists and intelligence analysts, listening in on communications and passing information to British and NATO forces, or backing up the data to pass to GCHQ for analysis later. For years, hardly anyone knew what these aircraft really did. Officially, they were described as radar calibration aircraft. Only after the end of the Cold War was their real purpose made public. This particular Nimrod is pretty special. It was the very first R1 delivered to 51 Squadron back in July 1971. It was retired in 2011. It made an appearance at the Waddington Air Show that summer before being declassified and decommissioned, then delivered to the Aeropark in November 2011. The Nimrod sits at the furthest end of the Aeropark. Beyond that is a small toilet block, and there is another one in the hangar at the other end, and a raised viewing platform to watch all the aircraft go from the runway to East Midlands Airport. It's quiet though today, it's a Sunday morning. Let's take a look at the toilet block. It's small in here and basic, but it's lovely and warm and clean. The toilet's flush, there is hot water and hand towels, so everything you need really. Here is a 1952 Gloucester Meteor. This one belonged to a pub in the 1970s and joined the Aeropark in 2003. It looks rather lovely with this backdrop of autumnal trees. And here we have the second de Havilland Vampire T11 at the Aeropark. Compared with the Gloucester Meteor, the Vampire was a bit underpowered and didn't climb all that well. so the RAF kept the Meteor as an interceptor and developed the Vampire as a trainer. Unlike the Meteor trainer, the Vampire kept its 420mm cannon, so it could be used for tactical weapons training too. The RAF threw T-11s into the 1970s, and with over 4,300 Vampires built, it became one of the most successful jet fighters ever. This particular Vampire was built in 1954, arrived at the Aeropark in 2009, restoration began in 2011, and is still ongoing. This 1955 Westland Whirlwind served with the Royal Navy, even taking part in the Christmas Island hydrogen bomb tests. After a long career around the world from Nigeria to Bermuda, it ended up here in the UK, and after years of work, it was fully restored in 2022. Here is a Hadley Page Jetstream, used by the RAF as a trainer plane from 1975 to 2005. It joined the collection in 2018. And here are the hangars. Let's go and take a look inside. At the front of the first hangar are a couple of training airframes, lots of bits of fuselage and some engines. By the cafe is the entrance to the second hangar, where they're working on their latest plane. At the back of the hangar is an area where they sell books and models to raise money, and there's a bit of a cafe as well, so you can get a drink and a snack. Next to the cafe are display cabinets with vintage pilot outfits and model planes, and a door through to the toilets. This Argosy freight plane flew in the USA in the 60s with Universal Airlines. In the early 80s, it came to the UK to fly with Airbridge carriers here at East Midlands Airport, mainly bringing fruit and veg from the Channel Islands. In 1987, the company donated it to the Aeropark. Here is a Hawker Hunter, one of the great classic fighters and one of Britain's first swept-wing interceptors. It even broke the world speed record in 1953 at over 727 miles an hour. This particular Hunter dates from 1958. And here is another Hunter, the FR10. Here is a 1960s Lightning, one of the UK's first supersonic aircraft, capable of Mach 2. This Lightning came to the Aeropark in 1989. Here is the forward fuselage and cockpit of an RAF Vickers Armstrong VC10 troop and cargo transporter that was based at Brize Norton. It joined the Aeropark in 2013. We had to look around and then had to sit down, and the seats are very comfortable, well padded and much nicer than the seats we have had to go on holiday. It was a lovely spot to have a chat with the volunteer about the history of the plane. Well, that's the end of our tour. We've spent about an hour and a half here, but could have done with an extra 20 minutes or so, but we've got a Sunday lunch booked at a local pub to get to. The park is well laid out, and there are raised areas with picnic tables, ideal for viewing the aircraft taking off from the airport. The volunteers are friendly and informative, the information boards are excellent, and it's great to be able to go inside the aircraft, handstand under the Vulcan. We've thoroughly enjoyed ourselves and can heartily recommend a visit. If you like this sort of thing, check out our visits to Shuttleworth and the Morgan Car Factory. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like and consider subscribing to get more reviews on attractions in the UK and beyond. Thanks for watching.